Reflections of Purpose.
Hello, thanks so much for joining us here at Twisted Threads. These are our reflections of purpose, and we're getting right in. Our topic today, creating healthy boundaries. Creating healthy boundaries in personal relationships specifically. And I love it because as we think about what does that mean? What does it mean to create healthy boundaries? Well, a lot of us don't have boundaries. And so that's the challenge of not only talking about how can we create them, but what should the boundaries be? And so sometimes we don't often think until well later into a relationship where people start exhibiting bad behavior. And oftentimes it'll be like, well, I don't deserve to be treated this way, or you shouldn't be doing such and such and so and so. And we've got a specific list. The challenge with that thought is that sometimes we don't take the time to share what our list is. And so the folks on the other side, they're treating us the best way that they know how. Sometimes we often try to get away from the fact that people's dysfunction show up in other portions of their life. So maybe it's a bad childhood that they had. Maybe it's bad experiences. Maybe they just don't trust people. I know in my circle of friends, one of the challenges that we would have as women is that it was so very hard for us to, and these are my close girlfriends, it was hard for us to push into that closeness realm where we would share everything. Why? Because we had been hurt in relationships before, hurt in friendships before, and it caused us to not want to push forward. Well, the great thing about being an adult is that there are a lot of people in your circle, you kind of get to choose them. And so if they suck at being friendly, call them up and tell them that. You know, I love it because I ran into one of my good friends, and this is a new friend. So we haven't even had years of, oh, we know how the calendars go and we're both busy. And we wound up showing up at the same time. And she's like, "Ooh, girl, we got to do better." And I made the same commitment. Yes, we both do. We got to be committed to that because a lot of times in our boundaries, we also don't set what the timeline is. Look, girl, every 2 weeks we need to be connecting with each other, or brother, are you doing okay? I have some amazing men in my life and I thank God for them because they will check on me. They will, sister, I'm coming through. Are you good? Are things okay? And those check-ins remind me to make sure that I'm also, you know, as women, we want to cultivate relationships with other women. And outside of a love relationship, we don't always think about how we need to cultivate relationships with our brothers. But I've been blessed, like I said, with some amazing men in my life who they make sure that they are involved in my life. And part of that is because we set that boundary to know, hey, sis, I'm going to check on you. Hey, it's been a while since I've seen you. Let's figure out how we get a face-to-face in there. And so as we're thinking about setting healthy boundaries, here it is. You get to name your limits. Different than when you were little kids. And I love it because when you think about little kids, they set clear boundaries that are easy to set. Look, you are my friend as long as you share your crayons. It's a limit, but it's simple. You are my friend as long as you share your cookies and milk with me. They're naming limits. They're not afraid to say, look, we friends until the street lights come on, and then I got to go inside because my mother's going to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. My dad is there like checking the clock. If we take the example of the little kids, because most of them haven't been hurt by friendship before, you know, there's been no backstabbing or backbiting or people talking behind their back because they're so young and innocent, but they've got the best of showing us how we should be in our relationships. So the first thing in setting boundaries is name what your limit is. I do it in personal relationships. I do it in love relationships. Look, this is how often I need to hear from you. This is how often I don't need to see your face. This is how often we need to communicate. And here are my challenges that I need to grow in some areas. And if you're transparent, no, that's not first date. Calm down. But if you're transparent in those things, then the person on the other end gets an opportunity to say, I know this information. There's transparency and truth, and I get to choose whether I want to proceed to the next level. I love it because, if you have streamed on any televisions, whether it's Netflix, Hulu, and sometimes even on demand, if you're silent after a certain amount of time and there's been no interaction, there's always something that comes on the screen and it's like, are you still there? Are you still streaming? Are you still watching? And sometimes we got to understand that part of the limit is trying to figure out how are we clear about identifying not just what the boundary is, but are we still checked in? And I love that because each time it's like, well, yeah, I'm still here. But again, no engagement with your streaming services and they're asking you, you got to think about how does that come up in personal relationships as well. Tune into your feelings. Be honest with you. Now, look, this does not give you the opportunity to be reckless, to be mean, or just spaz out. We all have those times. But having a heart of forgiveness and knowing I've got crazy friends who, when they get angry, look, somebody's going to get cussed out and it may or may not be a good situation. But you know where what? Stay over there in the corner while they're dealing with what they're dealing with. And then things kind of mellow out and we get to be back on track. It's okay to express yourself. Sometimes you got to step back from situations and really understand, you know what? I'm really angry right now. And I know that I probably will communicate to you in a way that might be considered disrespectful, in a way that might even be considered abusive. Let the person leave. Many of us, and I learned it the hard way in relationships, to be like, no, we're going to fix this right now. Sometimes you need that time to calm your own self down, to think about your thoughts and work them out in your head before you can share them with somebody else. Now, that's all you being a friend. That's all you committing yourself to that relationship. Being direct and straightforward, again, not being mean, saying things in love, saying things with kindness. But it's important for you to say, hey, look, I've got trust issues and I'm not blaming you or putting this baggage on you, but sometimes I'll need to step back. Sometimes I'll need an opportunity to kind of process what went on because, we've got another video about overthinking and not allowing overthinking to get in the way, but it just does sometimes. And so the bigger thing with the setting the boundaries is, if you believe that a person really is trying to build and grow, give them the chance to reset the button. Give them the opportunity to be self-aware. And then you got to give yourself the permission to say, I'm going to stay or I may leave. And whatever that is, don't give long explanations about it. Don't apologize for the way that you feel. But think about how you can do things on a different level and figure out what's the best thing for you. Why? Because you're the one setting the boundaries. And what you consider healthy has to even be reflected on by yourself. Because you might think something is healthy just because you dealt with it your whole life. But somebody else's view of it is like, wow, that's dysfunctional. That might be borderline abuse. Check yourself. Reflect on the relationships that you have and figure out how do you practice that self-awareness that you need to know, is your version of healthy really healthy? Now, your version of healthy for you may not fit whoever's on the other end of that personal relationship. And it's okay for them to decide, you know what, this is something I don't want to deal with. This portion of you, I've got to disconnect myself from. And you got to kind of be okay with that. Because if you don't, you create anxiety that doesn't need to be there. You make things bigger than they should be. But sensibility will come in. Now, look, here's the thing. As you consider your past and your present and thinking about what it is that you consider a healthy relationship and how to build those and how to grow those, there's always got to be checkpoints in there. Is everybody still in for the ride? Those messages, are you still there? Are you still watching? Are you still engaged? Because it's important for us to understand that every single day we've got an opportunity to choose. Remember to make self-care a priority in your life. Why? Because if you're always pouring out, this is something that is my homework for me. As I'm pouring out to you all, I've got to remember to take that energy back in. Why? Because I get tired, y'all. This stuff is not as easy as it looks. And sometimes it becomes draining. And so I make self-care a priority. And I'm giving you that as homework to remember to make self-care a priority for yourself. And as always, we are here to support you. But if you need more support, if you need a counselor, if you need a mentor, reach out. Whether you're reaching out to us or for somebody else who's closer to you in your circle, I have them, the mentors, the sponsors, and just the friends and support, because they're needed as we're looking to build and grow and believing for bigger and better things and preparing for our next. It's important for us to remember that support, they're the ones that keep us lifted up even on our bad days. So what? Our bad days don't have to be our worst days. Look, it's Twisted Threads. I'm glad you joined us. Remember to like and share these videos and subscribe to our YouTube channels. We're growing, we're building, and we're excited that you're building with us and coming along for the ride. Your family now. Make it an amazing day.